So, I'm Lorraine Cox, for those of you that don't know me. Some may recognise me. I was the chair of the National Social Value Task Force last year and had the privilege of co-presenting at this wonderful 3-day event with Guy. I would say the hardest gig of my life, exhausting. So this year it's rather nice to kick back and just have a couple of small speaking parts. My day job used to be the Director of Star Procurement, for those of you that know Star Procurement in the North. I have since taken semi-retirement, and Nicola over there, who I'm going to point out, is the new Director of Star. Congratulations, Nicola. So I'm going to say I'm a lady of leisure. I wish. A guy who knows me well says, no, that's never going to happen, Lorraine. I know what you like. So what I did recently was I thought, what am I going to do sort of post-retirement? Because I'm clearly going to do something, because I'm quite a busy lady and an active lady. And a passion of mine was to row. Those of any rowers in the room? One. Wow, goodness, I've got some converting to do here, haven't I, before you leave, get you to sign. So I grew up age 11 in a town called Northwich in Cheshire, and I wouldn't say I was one of those kids, but probably similar in terms of perhaps treading close to the wind in terms of the path and choices I was taking. I was lucky that a girl within my class was, or parents were rowers, and she said to me one day, would you like to come down to the river and learn to cox? Lorraine Cox, the Cox. You can see where this story went. So I joined rowing age 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, right through my teenage years, and I will say it was probably the best choice, if it was a choice that I made as a young person, to actually get into a sport, to row at a national level, to grow friendships and actually have some great life experiences, to say the least. But today what I want to do is to talk about All Aboard Youth Rowing. This charity was formed in, let me just click on my slides, was formed in with that one, 2016, I think, and it was formed out of a rowing club in Warrington, for those of you that are in the north. And basically, a guy from Warrington Rowing Club called Richard Sinnott made a declaration that we need to do more for young people, because rowing is seen as an elite sport, for those of you that know it. We only think of, people who have privileged life experiences, take up rowing as a thing that people do through university, but actually what he set himself a challenge of and actually formed the charity around was to actually demystify this elitist image that rowing had, and thought actually sport or activity or participation or belonging could actually be something that young people could get involved with. And it actually isn't about rowing, believe it or not. It's about how we get young people doing stuff that perhaps they wouldn't get that chance to do through their normal routes of life. So, making rowable accessible to all. One of the mantras we have within the charity is to actually say they must be safe and they must have fun. And that's as complicated as we make it, because actually fundamentally we have a duty of care, quite rightly, but actually do they have fun? Do they smile? And most of the time, if we had the video, you would see that this is very much about having fun. But when you're having fun, as all of us will know, you learn many, many other things. And this is what the charity wanted to build on, to say, how can we empower young people just to think differently, behave differently? One of the examples that was given to me early days when they were saying, please come back, Lorraine, please come and coach, please come and get involved. And I kept saying, I'm too busy with work, I've got a child. At some point when I take semi-retirement, I'll come back and maybe coach. So I joined this charity a number of months ago and have recently done all of my training. But what they said to me was, you're going to love this. And I'm thinking, well, yeah, I think I will, but I don't really know why I will. And I don't know what, obviously, I'm going to get from this, but more so, what can I give to this? Because I'm a person that's worked in the public sector for many years, with a boring title with procurement in. I'm an accountant by trade. And actually, I started to sort of test my thing and think, what skill set did I have, other than clearly I know how to row, but how can I actually give something to these young people and enable them to have, hopefully, better life chances? So we started off, as I say, in Warrington. That was one rowing club, and based now in 2025, we actually operate out of 6 rowing clubs in the Northwest. Northwest people in the room, put your hands in the air. Fantastic. Non-Northwest people, put your hands in the air. There is an equivalent organisation called London Youth Rowing for those of you that are down south, and I think they reach as far as the Midlands now as well. So if you're not in the north, please look at London Youth Rowing because they do a very similar thing, but actually on an even bigger scale. So what do? What we do is we work with secondary schools and we work with year 8 pupils, so age 13 basically is the catchment cohort. They're a year into secondary. They're at the point where the staff within the school start to know them. And most of that knowledge is possibly for negative reasons. Some have, dare I say, behaviour issues. There's definitely attendance issues for lots of different reasons that you can possibly imagine. Some have different types of challenges personally. Some have very challenging home lives for lots of different reasons. We've got children that are in foster care. We've got children who are carers for a sibling or a parent. So we have very diverse young people. And what we do each year is we challenge the schools to actually what we call handpick. Please find 12 children in year 8 from your school and bring them down to the river. So we've just started this programme for this year back in September. They're with us from September through to June. And this bus turns up and there's all these faces and they're all giddy and some are excited, some are terrified, as you can imagine, because they've been told you're going on a bus. Some are excited by that because what they've seen historically is that bus leaves the school with the netball team, the football team, the cricket team, the team that are going to do some drama and theatre studies. And quite often some of the young people that we work with don't have that opportunity to be on that bus. And the first thing, my hairs have just gone up on my neck, the first thing that we see is the children that we've hand selected are now on the bus. They're on the bus and they're being brought to a river to do something for them as individuals and for them as a collective. Most of them don't really know each other. They possibly don't even socialise with each other within the school. So we're not sort of taking friendship groups. We're actually taking young people that the school think will respond to this type of programme. So you can imagine we might get 12 who, like, why am I here? I've seen her in the dinner queue and I've seen him in the schoolyard and didn't really like him. So there's lots of layers of things that we've got to slowly unpick, slowly get to understand and slowly get to know from these young people. Some of the areas we work in, I live in Northwich in Cheshire, and as soon as you put Cheshire into the sentence, people just assume I must live in a castle. I don't. They assume that we're all very middle class and we've all got a horse. My sister had a horse when we were kids, but that's another story. But actually some of these children, and the majority of these children that we're working with, are actually from some of the 2% most deprived wards within the country. So don't mislead the thought of Cheshire, leafy, horsey, rowing elitist, because actually this is exactly what this programme is not about. Just click on. So, some nice images here. Let me just go back and just point at these here. This gang here from Middlewich High School, I do have permission for all of the photographs on these slides. As I look down this boat, they actually started with me 4 weeks ago. And this was week 2. Now, as an experienced rower, and my colleague in the room, who will also be an experienced rower, to stand up in a boat, terrifying. Okay, and this is a woman who's rowed across the world, literally, and been on many rivers and docks in all sorts of bad weathers. But on week 2, first time ever in a boat, and they're standing, they're even waving like this. Matilda here said, please don't make me stand. She didn't actually even really want to go in a boat, but I will say the week after, I've not got the picture on the slides, but Matilda stood up and actually stood up in that boat and faced that fear. So we have to think about safety. We do things like what we call rigger dips. So these bits of metal that stick out at the side of the boats are called riggers, and we make them sit and rock the boat. Now, I'm supposed to be the expert in this boat, because sometimes I do jump in and cocks, depending on numbers. And this boat's going like this, and they're all laughing and grimacing, and I have to say I'm absolutely terrified, because I know if that boat flips, and they've then got 4 or 5 young people potentially in the water with life jackets on, but actually you'd never know how people will react. We just don't know. So we have to always think of, dare I say, the worst case scenario and think about what will we do. Now, as you can imagine, we do a lot of land briefings first. We do a lot of safety drills. We don't physically throw them in the water. You might be pleased to know. We don't even take them to swimming baths and actually practice in a baths. But actually, what we do is we talk about safety. The rule is the boat will always float, and that's the mantra. Sorry, you're going to be my plant in the audience. But a boat will always float. Fact. Did the Titanic float? No, but rowing boats always float. Okay, so we'll go with that one. So the first rule of falling in is you stay with the boat. Now, can you imagine being a 13-year-old on week 2 on a rowing programme and you fall in? What are you going to do? Swim, swim, swim. I'm looking at Mike because I know Mike's a swimmer. So we have to all the time think about safety first, but equally we need to test them, stretch them, give them this experience to see how we can grow their confidence. I did tell them they were going to be famous this week as well. So I said, you're going to be on a big screen. So here's a few more images. Every year we hold a regatta, which is a rowing race for those of you that don't know. In June this year, we had 72 boats, 72 crews racing each other on the river in Warrington. And as an example, they've all got matching T-shirts, they belong, they've got kit, and we actually race them up and down in a time trial, and you won't believe the competitiveness that suddenly oozes out of these young people. Look, Lorraine, my school's beaten, Warrington High, and my school's beaten. And all of a sudden, these young people change. There was one young girl there who, I won't name her name, but she was quite challenging on one of the sessions I coached on in the summer. And I thought, anyway, we got her in a boat. She won her race. Well, wow, you should have seen that smile. She bounced over and she said, I've just won. And somebody else came over and said, we need somebody to cox another boat. And she said, can I do that? And that, my hairs have gone up on my neck again. That did it for me, because I thought, going from somebody that didn't really want to be there to them being there, participating, winning, and then volunteering to have another go with a group of people she didn't even know. And that boat won as well, by the way. It was really, really empowering. But what we look at is impact. So we think about these young people, and I know impact was a word this morning, I think was picked up in the main stage, that we should perhaps think about what changes rather than actually impact. And we look at it and we say, what changes in the young person? We look at it and we say, what changes in their family or home life? And obviously you can imagine we do soft questionnaires, we talk to the young people, we talk to families, we talk to siblings, we talk to school, staff, and we try and get a feel. And as coaches as well, we make observations. We talk to school, so obviously we want them to be in school, attend school, be happy in school, and obviously we'd hope that learning will improve. And community, if these children go down the wrong path, as 1 or 2 or 3 may, what impact does that have on community in terms of behaviour, antisocial behaviour, and so on and so forth? So what we try and do is say, what impact positively can we help these young people with? And equally, how can we steer them away from having experiences that perhaps aren't where we want them to be in society? So, some facts. Last year, 96% of them told us that they were proud. They were proud to be in a rowing boat. If you'd asked them that on day 1, you can imagine the sort of feedback we start with. What we have done this year is we've done a questionnaire at the beginning and we're going to do one at the end. 84% told us they've made more friends, because some of these children are isolated at school. They feel they don't fit in. They feel that the social group is perhaps not their gang or their tribe or whatever. And actually, they're now put with a group of people that they probably don't know. As I say, they might recognise people from school that they perhaps don't like the look of or whatever. But actually, they've made friends. So there's a socialising activity that comes with this. 83% said that it's helped them in other parts of their school life. Attendance, learning, behaviour. Any teachers in the room will know the sorts of skills and soft skills that we're seeing improve there. 90% feel fitter. we talk about obesity, we talk about health, we talk about well-being. So it's really, really important that we not treat this as a fitness class. We mustn't treat it as a fitness class because it's about fun. But actually, what you see is children saying, when I finished at the regatta today, Lorraine, can I join a rowing club? Can my mum bring me on a Saturday morning? So even if we get 1, 2, 3 or 4 through the door, we feel that's a success. 92% confirmed as gaining improved performance at school. Well, schools love statistics, don't they? And that's factual, and that's based on evidence that actually their learning, 92% of their learning has shown improvement during that time. And the last one, school have told us that their attendance, I like this word, and their resilience has increased. Those of you that watch Educating Yorkshire on a Sunday night, you know, the sorts of children that we're actually working with, they become more resilient because they're building confidence in themselves, and actually that confidence and resilience starts to apply within the school and the home setting. So I'm just going to take you through a case study because, again, we've talked about over the last 2.5 days about the importance of understanding what's changed. And what we have here is just a few slides. This is an individual who I'm going to start by referring to her as M, a young person who was part of our programme about 3 or 4 years ago. The words in the circles were given to me by Mum. So M is autistic, does have ADHD. She felt she didn't fit in. She felt socially awkward. She struggled to focus at school. She had crippling anxiety to the point that her attendance was being affected in school. She had a fear that she wouldn't ever be able to sit an exam or a test. And as you can imagine, her attendance was pretty low. So, what changed? My favourite here is, rowing saved my daughter. Now, when Mum told me that, and I can feel it now, I thought, wow, we've made a difference to M, and we've made a difference to potentially 1, 2, 3, 10, 20, 100 children. But rowing saved my daughter were her words. And the school have said confidence, self-belief. If you look at the one in the middle at the bottom, M came out with qualifications from secondary school. That wasn't the story when she was 13. So I think that just gives you a flavour of the evidence of the impact. She's called Molly, and I'm allowed to show you a picture of Molly. I have Molly's permission and I have Molly's mum's permission, but I think it's just really important that we bring Molly to life here. She is now the junior captain at Northwich Rowing Club. So she's not only just being a rower and growing in her own individual being, but now she's leading other young people to help them to row. She has rowed at a national level. She is doing A-levels and a BTEC, so her education has now become her path, and she aspires to go to university. So she's one of many, but I just thought that was a really nice case study to share. We should have another video at this point, which I will skip over because of time. So my final 2 or 3 slides. Working for a voluntary community and social enterprise sector, who in the room is in that sector at the moment? Okay. There's many challenges, many challenges to running, and you've heard that from some of the panels this morning. One of the hardest jobs is fundraising and actually getting people to put money in. Because without money, it's very hard to pay for coaches, to pay for boats, to actually get children to participate and have somebody that's paid to drive them in the minibus to bring them to the river. So funding is a really significant issue, particularly for my charity. So as a coach, what I'm trying to do is practice what I preach, being a social value lead for many years. So what I'm trying to do now is give social value back to my community through rowing. We talk about collaboration. So again, one of my voluntary roles with the charity is to actually help them to have conversations with business, because when you knock on the door and say, hey, give us some money for my football team or my rowing team or my hockey club, what answers do you get? No. Why are you special? Why are you different? Why should we give money to you? And a particular business I've been working with recently is a company called Forts of Winsford. Anybody bought a car supermarket? Thank you, Ash. I knew there'd be a plant in the audience somewhere. They have 2 sites, one in Cheshire, Winsford in Cheshire, and one in Trafford Park, again, for those of you that know the area. And I've been doing some work with the Ford family recently because they're very, very keen as a rowing family, and I'll explain that in a second. But they've been really, really keen to say, we want to invest in this charity. Doesn't happen very often, does it? But they said, but we don't just want to just write a cheque and put a picture on the wall of the rowers, because that's what most people do, don't they? And they just want a picture from the website. They said, we want to understand what impact does our money help to have, what changes with these young people, so we can actually start to celebrate as a business that we are a good business and therefore we do good business. So it very much they want to invest and have a vested interest of seeing how that investment plays to help them be good. I spoke to Paul. Paul is the 2nd generation within this business. The business was founded by his dad, who had a farm and sold 1 car in his field many, many years ago, 1959, I think. And as you can imagine, Ash, you know, because you've been and bought a car from there, they've now got hundreds and thousands of cars, and it's now obviously a multi-million-pound business. But Paul said, as a rowing family, we want to invest, we want to give back, we want to make a difference in our community, and not just about putting money into rowing, but we want to also say, how can we help the community? How can we help people into work? How can we get young people involved in what we do as a business? Because there might be somebody in a school that's a budding salesman. There might be somebody in there that's a budding mechanic. But actually, how can we work with the schools beyond the rowing and the river to actually help our business do good, but also help the community? So they're a very, very committed family. One thing Paul said is, I like the charity because I think we need to give people in society a leg up. So people talk about equality. What Paul and I talked about was equity and giving those in greater need a little bit of a chance. And that's what the minibus trip is for, is giving these young people a chance. My last slide, I'm just going to explain the rowing family. So we had Grandma and Grandad, 1959, bit hard up, even though they had a farm and they sold a car in their field. And that's how this business was created. The next generation, Paul, who's, I think, is the CEO of the business. Paul actually has 4 children. Emily Ford, Great Britain top. You can see where the story's going. Emily got a bronze medal at the Paris Olympics. And her brother, Tom, got a gold medal at the Paris Olympics and was a bronze medal winner from the previous Olympics. So they are absolutely a well and truly bred rowing family. What Emily does now is she's an ambassador for the charity. As you can see, she comes and works with young people. She goes into schools. Yes, she talks about rowing. Yes, she takes her medal, as you can see, passes it around because kids love it. They want to touch the medal. They want to wear the medal. And actually they say, will I be in the Olympics one day? So what it's doing is it's raising their aspiration and letting them look upwards and think, I could be that one day, and I've got the chance of being in a boat. So that is all I have to say. Thank you for listening. I'm so sorry that we haven't got the video. If there's a way we can share that, I'll make sure that Guy circulates it, because they would have said that on the screen rather than listening to me for the last 20 minutes. But thank you for being here. Much appreciated.